Thank you very much, Sune, and the panel. Thanks a million for this conversation. It was really insightful, and I hope everyone has gained something from this discussion. Now we are moving to the next panel discussion, which will talk about elections, misinformation, disinformation, and what can Europe learn from the Nordics. So, I mean, if we've been following the news over the past few months, over the past year, we could have noticed that Russia definitely has stepped up information campaigns in elections across Europe. And it is trying to steer the sentiment of voters to sway the results of all those elections. And there are also other players and states, not just Russia in fact, that are taking advantage of the tumbling costs of creating targeted campaigns powered by artificial intelligence. So this panel right here will examine the current readiness and best practices in securing fair elections in the face of inauthentic media. And also they will talk, I hope, about the role that startups are playing in this. And just to remind you that this is a very, very timely conversation for this time and this place, because Sweden, Latvia and Estonia, all three of them go to ballots this fall in September and October. So it is a very important thing to understand right now. How do we actually work against mis and disinformation in elections? So I'm very, very pleased to invite our panel. We have our moderator, Jessica Cecil, the founder of Athena. Athena is a new media company at the front line of preparing corporations and others for the information war that's already upon us. How to spot attacks on information integrity, how to respond, how to find a network of the like-minded. So Athena does all that through events, through newsletters, advisory services, and education. And to discuss the topics, we have Maria Amelie, the CEO and co-founder at Factiverse. And together with her team, Maria is building AI for verifying narratives in video and audio across more than 100 languages. Just imagine that you have a fact checker right under your fingertips as you watch whatever is going on the TV or on YouTube. Also, she is the co-founder of Startup Migrants, which is an organization that has trained over 1,700 multicultural founders since 2021. And to join her is Björn Iller, the CEO of Revontulet, an independent intelligence firm that is working to counter extremism and mitigate the actions of harmful networks. Björn is an internationally recognized expert in counterterrorism and in threat intelligence, and his work focuses on the international dynamics of adversarial networks and on combating the threats that they are posing. Now, the floor is all yours, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Please give a warm round of applause to this panel.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. This panel is about what all of us can learn from Nordics on how to defend the integrity of democratic elections. And as we've heard, this is a constant threat. I'm Jessica Cecil, as you've heard, founder of Athena, a media company focused on disinformation. Election interference, particularly from the Russians, as we know, is ramping up as the cost of creating disinformation campaigns is falling. But there are countermoves, and they are working. The Nordics have developed some of Europe's most sophisticated whole-of-society and tech responses to these so-called information threats. Maria Amelie, as you've heard, is co-founder and CEO of Factiverse, a Norwegian AI-powered fact-checking company working at the intersection of journalism, technology, and information integrity. And Björn Iller is founder and CEO of Revontulet. It's an independent intelligence firm, and it is working to counter extremism and mitigate the actions of harmful networks and the threats they pose to international security. So this is a big topic, but we're going to take ourselves through it in quite a systematic way. So first of all, Maria, what is different about the way in which the Nordics counter issues to do with information integrity in democratic elections?
Thank you. There's a lot more trust in the Nordics compared to other parts of the world. And for example, we work a lot with the state broadcasting in Norway and Sweden, where we help them to mitigate, to track possible narratives in for video and audio. For example, if they want to track all the far-right podcasts, then they can just, instead of watching everything, they can just use our service to track and see the main claims. And we were able to build this company because of the strong ecosystem, media ecosystem, that is especially in Norway. Norway is actually the country that is top 3 when it comes to investing in the government, how much government invests in the media, supports free media organizations, both state broadcasting, but also numerous, I think 163 other newspapers, both local and national newspapers. And what they also is they're on top when it comes to the freedom of speech rankings. And all the Nordic countries are that. And there are not a lot of countries in the world, I think, where you have so much subsidy and support from the government to media and you still have freedom of speech. And that's a fact I need to tell people, because we ourselves just take it for granted. So I think that kind of 50 years of investment in the innovation in information ecosystem infrastructure is the reason that we have this high level of trust. And some countries don't.
Really interesting and really important to note that good, high-quality, fact-based media is an important component in all of this. Bjorn, same question to you. How do you see the Nordics as different?
I think flipping some of what Maria is saying on its head there is kind of my approach to understanding the Nordic landscape. And we're looking at the wider information ecosystem, not just conventional media, but also what's happening on social media, how we are relying on that. And one of the things we're seeing is that in the Nordics, we're kind of over-relying a lot on Facebook still, for some reason. And obviously that comes with its own trade-offs in terms of how reliant we are on essentially an American mega corporation, but also their algorithmic sorting, etc. And that informs our information diet as well as how that interacts with traditional media. And then there is the component of trust, where at times we might be trusting the media and our governments a bit too much, and we might kind of take it for granted that we can trust these institutions. And sure, we can probably trust the institutions a lot of the time, but that trust in itself is also something that can be weaponized against us, where organizations and entities pretending to be national outlets, gamifying and using social media, etc., as levers for that is a potential threat vector that we need to take a lot more seriously, especially in understanding how information operations from Russia's allies, and kind of the wider ecosystem of authoritarian regimes is trying to undermine the kind of institutional trust in democracy that exists in the Nordics.
And a little bit about how the role your company plays in this.
Right. So Remontul is, as mentioned, kind of a threat intelligence company, and we're looking at networks of actors and how they are relating to each other a lot of the time. So we're looking at how state actors are backing organized crime, or backing terrorist and violent extremist organizations, etc., but also how they are feeding the information landscape in order to sow discord, in order to increase polarization, etc. And that is something we're seeing undermining both democratic values as such, but also that is targeting democratic infrastructure, so in particular elections as kind of a flashpoint. But we also are vigilant in understanding that the threat is persistent even though the elections are flashpoints. And so a lot of interesting things are happening 6 months after elections and in between election periods as well, where the threat continues to exist and continues to kind of tear away at the fabric of democracy in our societies as well.
Really interesting. So we've heard about what both of you are doing. We've heard about the importance of the media. There's obviously education as well, which is far more sophisticated in the Nordics than it is in many other parts of the world. But how do you think about these strands working together? How do they overlap? And who is pushing, what is cross-Nordic cooperation? Who's pushing it? And is it the government is the guiding hand in all of this, or is it a happy accident that all of these different players work together? Maria.
From startup perspective, there's not a lot of Nordic cooperation when it comes to startups.
Right.
You know, if you're in Norway trying to go to UK or to US, that's how it happens. You don't go necessarily to Sweden. And when it comes to collaboration, there's a lot of good collaboration on media and fact-checking media. So we are the tech provider of Nordics. It's an EU project for all the fact-checking media that has been quite innovative in their approach of analyzing large amounts of information before and after elections. And that's happened because of the support from the Nordic ecosystem and from the EU as well. And the project we both are involved in is, it's also a collaboration between both academia, philanthropy, and public media. I don't know if you want to tell more about that.
So same question to you. I mean, is it the EU? What is it? Individual national governments or the EU? What's the guiding hand that's pulling this together, if there is one?
So I think we're sitting here as two Norwegian startups. Like, EU is not something we're members of necessarily, but I think we're both still kind of part of the wider ecosystem of things that are playing into Horizon bids and things like that within the EU network. But then also, like, one unique characteristic of the Nordics, as you're saying, is the academic sector and the fact that we do have kind of strong academic institutions, and through that have the ability as well to build partnerships. And so we've built a partnership with FOIO at Linnéuniversitetet in Sweden for Valkollen, where like both of our companies are involved in doing electoral observations for the Swedish election now. That is driven a lot by kind of personality and personal connections. It's my sense of that. Like, it's driven by the fact that we know the guys at that university. But like at the government level, there's not a whole lot of structured support for this kind of collaboration. And there could be more through the Nordic Council, through the like Nordic cooperation mechanisms that are existing. But I think some of this also speaks to some of what the venture capital panel earlier was touching on, in terms of there's been this hesitation surrounding, in particular, things that are related to security, to defense, from the investment sector, but also from the government sector, in terms of letting startups and companies like us take the stage and kind of feed into the wider ecosystem. And I think that's, as we've touched upon throughout the day-to-day, strategic failure, because like startups are more nimble. We're able to like take up space in different coalitions and work more quickly, both outside of the government contracts and outside of the defense contracts, as well as within them. And so we bring both innovation as well as that ability to navigate more nimbly within how collaborations and constellations like this are operating. So there's definitely like strategic benefits to that, and I think we need to think about how we are working with government as well as with the investment sector, etc., in order to facilitate that collaboration at a higher level.
So just to follow up on that, what's your view on that?
No, I'm just like, go to any European country and there's not a minister that would like to deal with disinformation.
Right.
They're pushing this issue from one department to another. Electoral committees, youth, internal department, or foreign interference, or and security. Like, it's such a difficult issue, and it consists of so many parts that even as well in the Nordics, nobody wants to touch it because it's so close to censorship when you just talk about disinformation. If you talk about foreign influence campaign, then there's more likelihood that people would like to deal with it.
That's really, really interesting. So actually the framing of what the rest of Europe and indeed NATO can learn from the Nordics, I guess the question from you guys both is, there is a lot that you're doing that's great, but there's a lot even here that can be done. And is what's being done here already a result of you operating in very high trust societies, very educated societies, pretty rich societies? Actually, is the work that you're doing and the way in which you're trying to forge more something that is replicable and scalable, or actually is what you do here very much shaped by what you should do? Start with you, Bjorn.
I think, like, for us, the Nordics has definitely been an advantage in our work globally. And so we work a lot in Canada in particular, but also Australia, New Zealand, kind of around the Anglophone world a lot, but also in the rest of the world. And so having kind of the ability to say, like, we are based in Norway, we have all of our data in our servers or in the European Union, we are GDPR compliant, like all of those things, as well as the understanding of, like, Norway is the most politically stable country in the world on like all of the ratings. I think those things add to inherent trust in us when it comes to tackling some of these really challenging questions, but also some of these questions that go into relatively sensitive places when it comes to protection of freedom of expression and protection of human rights in general, protection of privacy, etc. And so, like, as an intelligence firm, we are obsessive about actually protecting privacy as well. And I think like, we wouldn't have the credibility to even make that statement had it not been for kind of the infrastructure that's built into the Nordic model, as well as into Norway as a base for doing that. And so I think that creates an ecosystem, or like the potential for an ecosystem rather, from which companies like ours can launch into the world and scale quite significantly.
Oh, that's really interesting. Your answer to the same question, Maria.
Yeah, I was thinking about local newspapers, and Facebook ads basically wiped out all of the local newspapers in the US, which local newspapers are the foundation of democracies and people's access to the relevant information. And when that happened, I think that really affected, that's the reason the US is where they are, one of the reasons. And I think that's what we, in the Nordics, people, like, local newspaper is important. And Nordics is also some of the regions where people are paying most per subscription, especially for local newspapers, because you really care about them covering things and going to the boring, bureaucracy meetings and actually reporting from what's happening locally. So that's why I think that's, and then when it comes to the startups, I think Sweden is the best country when it comes of all the Nordics. If you want to do tech, if you want to sell tech, if you want to get investment, it's really it's agile as well. I mean, we're in Denmark. It's also things happening here as well, especially if you're in certain sectors where there's Denmark is very strong in. But I think things are moving a bit slowly in Norway, and it's also a lot more academia funding. So if you want to do a lot of research, that you have a big opportunity to do that and get support, soft funding through that. So yeah.
So actually, there's a parallel with everything we've been hearing this morning about bringing startups like you into the conversation in order to get agility and fresh thinking, and it's as important in defending democracy as it is in defending territory. I mean, is that a fair summary of where both of you are coming from? I
think so. I think one component to add to that is, like, the Nordics sometimes lack a sense of urgency. Yeah. And so I think that goes into, like, how the soft funding and things like that are working. Like, the systems are there and they are working, but it takes time. And at a situation where we are now, like, 12 years into war in Ukraine, like, the urgency should have hit by now, to some extent, right? And so kind of picking up that, I think, is important.
Yeah, we had a very interesting trip to San Francisco last month, where we shared some of the data we gathered in collaboration with journalists, with fact checkers, a lot of trustworthy data. And the feedback from a lot of people, especially working with LLMs, were like, oh, you guys can actually use this to improve the accuracy of LLMs. So, so we're actually now working on proving that. I have already proven some studies that show that, but this would have not happened without, you know, they can build tech in the US, but we can fix it.
Yeah.
in the Nordics.
A great place to finish. Thank you so much. That's a lot for all of us to consider and take on board. Please seek out my guests, Bjorn Eiler and Maria Amelie, afterwards if you want to ask them any questions, and indeed find me if you're interested in Athena, media company focused on disinformation. But please join me in thanking them.